LI Tech Advisors Accessibility Workshop for July 2021. Are your web pages set up for success? How well-built websites enhance user experience and can improve search engine optimization, SEO. So we'll begin. A little bit about me. I am a certified professional in web accessibility. I am also a Department of Homeland Security Section 508 trusted tester. And I have a little over 4 years experience helping clients, large and small, ensure their digital offerings are accessible to persons with disabilities. So we'll begin. Why is good page structure important? Creates an intuitive and comfortable experience for the user. And when it comes to layout, consistency is key. People like seeing the same navigational items, the same layout and template on each page. It becomes, they become very familiar with the way the website is laid out, and that's always a good thing. A clean, uncluttered design will prevent confusion and allow the user to focus on the information that they're interested in without being overloaded or overwhelmed. All of these things will inspire user confidence and make browsing your website not only informative, but pleasurable for the user. And that will lead to repeat viewings of your website. And it will lead to people just word of mouth, spreading word about your website. So continuing on, which of these websites would you rather search for information on? I have two images here. The image of the website on the left-hand side of the screen is cluttered and just overwhelming with information, and it has a radical paisley design. Thanks, Sam, for teaching me that word. Just so many things going on. It's an information overload. Whereas on the right-hand side, you have a very clean website. It's a navigation region, an image, some information, but not too much info. It's very intuitive to navigate, and it's much more pleasurable to the eye. So what is semantics? Well, an element being defined semantically means that it has inherent, intrinsic, and computer detectable characteristics. So for example, if a link is properly defined as a link, assistive technologies such as screen readers and web browsers will be able to convey to the user that it is a link. Semantics also means not relying on how the content or information is presented visually to convey information about that element. So page language, and this is a really important thing. One of the very first things any web designer should do when authoring a web page is to define the human language in which the page is written. So doing this will allow assistive technologies such as screen readers to load the correct pronunciation and grammar rules, as well as allow web browsers to accurately parse and display the content. Every single web page must have the default language declared. This is a non-negotiable, and any good web developer will know to do this. Wherever pieces of content are written in a language other than the default language, this must be defined in the code as well. So for example, if you have a web page that's written in English, but it has a few sentences written in French on the page as well, the section that's written in French must be declared as being in French. In this way, the web browser will be able to present it as in French with all the accent marks and things like that. And assistive technology will be able to speak with a French inflection to the user. So the correct pronunciation rules were loaded because the section of content was defined as being in French. Page titles. Accurate, succinct, and appropriate page title helps all users, not just persons with disabilities. This content is what is displayed in the tab or window title area in a web browser, and is the first bit of content announced by screen readers or other assistive technologies upon page load. This is very important. Don't keyword stuff in hopes of improving SEO. Stick to what the page is about. Keep it short and sweet and accurate. Best practice. If content is going to be repeated in the page titles, for instance, a brand name or company name, put the unique portion of the title first. So if you have a home, about us, and contact us page, and you want to put your company name in there as well, make sure it says about us, company X, home, company X, and contact us, company X. For example, I have an image here of 3 of our web pages as they appear in the title bar of a web browser. And from left to right, it is About Us, LI Tech Advisors, Blog, LI Tech Advisors, and Contact Us, LI Tech Advisors. You'll notice that we place the unique portion of the title first, before our company name, which is repeated on each. And this is good for if there's limited real estate in the title bar. So the user will always be able to see what the unique portion of the title is first. And this will be the first thing that the screen reader user will hear upon initial page load. So it's very important to have a good title. Page regions. So regions on the page should also be semantically defined. And these can include navigation regions, footer, main regions, articles, asides, etc. This will improve page navigation for assistive technology users and give them a better understanding of the organizational layout of the content. And this will help everybody by providing good visual boundaries between different areas on the web page, specifically between the content and things that are repeated, such as navigation, header, and footer regions. Headings. Headings must be semantically defined. Don't simply rely on the visual presentation of the text to hint that it's a heading. Heading should convey to the user the topic of the content that comes after it. And you should utilize a logical heading hierarchy. For example, I have an image here of a web page dedicated to taking care of your cat. And we can see that the top level heading, the H1, is taking care of your cat. So everything that comes after that will deal with how to take care of your cat. And then we see a level 2 heading. That's our major subtopic, is nutrition. So everything coming after this heading will be about the nutrition of your cat. We have 2 level 3 headings, water and food, and they are at the same logical level below nutrition. And then we have below the level 3 heading food, level 4 headings, dry food and wet food. So you can see all of these headings have a logical relationship to one another. And this is good. Put keywords in headings, such as taking care of your cat. If someone searches for taking care of your cat in a search engine, it's more likely that this page will be returned in the results than if it was than if the text taking care of your cat was simply just plain text. So it's important to know that headings are prominent SEO content, but similar to how we approach titles, don't abuse this. Make sure it's accurate and not overly wordy. You want to make it as succinct as possible while still conveying what the topic is. Lists. Lists are an awesome way to convey items that are logically connected to one another. And again, lists of items should be semantically defined. Don't just use dashes or numbers in the content to visually create a list. Utilize semantic HTML code, including unordered, bulleted lists, ordered, numbered lists, and definition lists. So for example, here we have an image of a list, and you'll notice that we have nested lists within it. And lists can be nested. You can have a list within a list. So for example, our top level list here is fruit, vegetables, and meat. And then we have a nested list underneath fruit of bananas, apples, and pears. And again, we have another nested list within apples of green and red. And if this is marked up correctly, this will be conveyed to the user via the assistive technology because all of the correct nesting code is presented and defined. So when writing content, we want to try to limit the use of slang terms or jargon or overly complex language that most people won't understand. When using acronyms, remember to define the acronym the first time it's used, because not everybody knows every single acronym. So for example, Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, parentheses, WCAG. Not fully justify the text content, and this is strictly a visual presentation thing. This means don't have the left and right margins of a block of text be strictly defined, creating a block. This will create rivers of blank space throughout the text, hindering the reading ability of some users with cognitive disabilities or those who are low vision. For example, here I have an image. I have the same excerpt from Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis. On the left-hand side, it is fully justified, meaning the left and right margins are strictly defined. And you can notice that to accomplish this presentation, there are spaces in between words to accommodate for the distance that needed to be made up to reach those predefined margins. This creates rivers of white, and it could be very, very difficult for someone perhaps with dyslexia or other cognitive disabilities to follow along and read. On the right-hand side, we have just a left-aligned normal paragraph where only the left side is defined, and the right side, where the words end, they end. There is no strict definition of visual presentation. And this is much easier for somebody with low vision to follow along, to find what line they're currently on, as well as it eliminates those rivers of blank white space. So it's much easier for those with cognitive disabilities to read as well. Interactive elements. So elements that perform some action must be identified as being interactive, both semantically and visually. So links should be defined as links. Buttons should be defined as buttons, etc. Utilizing semantic HTML code is sufficient. Issues tend to arise only when authors create custom interactive elements. And I tell all the clients that I work with, don't try to reinvent the wheel when you're making a web page. If there's already an element in HTML code, such as a link or a button, don't try to create one yourself because you'll lose some of the intrinsic characteristics and values that are associated with it naturally. To try to make the interactive text descriptive, avoid vague click here type links. You should always try to go above and beyond with your link text. And this will help SEO as well, because link texts also hold a higher weight in the evaluation for rankings through Google and other search engines. So click here doesn't really provide the search engine with much information. So you should try to provide the user as well as search engines a good information in that link text. Ensure that interactive elements look interactive. Links should be a different color than the text on the page and or have an underline to visually distinguish them as not just plain text. And of course, this should be at a minimum when those links have keyboard focus or are being hovered over with the mouse. But ideally, at all times, the interactive text should appear differently than the plain text. Buttons should have a visually defined hit or click area so the user knows where to place their mouse cursor over it in order to activate it, or if it's a touchscreen, where to put their finger or the stylus. So as an example here, I have two images. The first is of links. We have plain text, which reads text, and it's just black text, nothing special. Then we have a link, and it is blue in color and has an underline, and that'll visually distinguish it from the plain text. And then we have visited link, which is purple and has an underline. Again, so it visually distinguishes it from the plain text that's around it. And then I have I am a button, a big orange button with white text saying I am a button. And the orange area is the click or hit area. So not only does it visually stand out as I'm interactive, but it also tells the user where to place their finger, stylus, or mouse cursor in order to activate it.
Can I ask a question? Do you take questions?
Sure.
Sure.
With the link question, are you saying to write the word link in blue or just to make blue the text that you want them to click?
It depends on what you're doing on your specific web page. The fact that a link is blue and underlined is actually handled by the web browser. So when the author of the web page defines something as a link, normally it'll default to blue with an underline to visually distinguish it. However, that can be changed by the author because, for instance, perhaps your plain text on your website is blue and you want to distinguish it from that. So you could change it around. The point here is to make any sort of interactive text or interactive elements distinguishable visually from the non-interactive plain text on the page.
Okay, thank you.
So designing mobile-friendly websites. And this is extremely important nowadays. Users access your site on many different devices with different size screens. For instance, desktop, laptop, tablets, or smartphones. So improving mobile friendliness will enhance user experience and SEO. And a personal aside, I'm a car guy, and I use a lot of different automotive parts websites. And most of these websites are pretty poorly built, and they were built many years ago. So when I try to access these websites on my smartphone, it's a cumbersome process. They're not geared for the smaller viewport size, and it's just very difficult to use and navigate and interact with these websites. So not only is it important for search engine optimization, as well as important for persons with disabilities, but it's also just a good user experience thing to accommodate people coming to your website on a variety of devices. So a top factor for Google search ranking nowadays is mobile friendliness, which is better known as having a responsive website. Consistency, predictability, and page speed. Web pages should be as consistent and predictable as possible for layout and navigation. So the location of navigational elements should remain consistent across web pages. Most websites will have a navigation menu near the top or on one of the sides of the website, and that should remain consistent across all web pages so the user can get a little bit of a familiarity with how each page is laid out. So according to Google, web pages should load quickly, known as largest contentful paint, and that's just Google's fanciful terms for this sort of stuff. Pages should react quickly when the user interacts with them. First input delay. Again, that's another Google fun artsy term. And pages should remain visually stable. No jumping around or scrolling without user input to do those things. And that's known as cumulative layout shift. You don't need to know those fancy Google terms. I didn't know it before I made this presentation, and I'm going to forget it afterward. But the point is that the page should load quickly, react quickly when the user interacts with it, and remain visually stable. And these will improve search engine optimization, but it'll also improve the accessibility for persons with disabilities using your website. And again, another aside, as far as the remaining visually stable, I can't tell you how many times I load a web page, be it on my desktop, laptop, or smartphone, and I see immediately what I want to interact with, and I go and I click on it, and suddenly the page had moved. And now I've clicked on something I didn't want to click on, and I have to navigate back, and that takes a few seconds. And it's overall just a poor user experience when the page jumps around without me telling it to, without me moving my finger to scroll or using the scroll bar or the arrow keys. So overall, just good user experience, building for good user experience. These three things should be taken into consideration, which Google now takes into consideration when they rank pages. A page that does these three things will rank higher than a page that does not. Do we have any further questions or comments? I'll be happy to go over anything you
I
may
just
have.
want to add that your webpage is the landing page. So when someone's searching for you on the internet or something, they're brought to your webpage, which is why it's super important to have your content inlined, easy legible text. Your semantics are also in line because you don't want them to leave your website feeling overwhelmed or frazzled, and you don't. They're not going to most likely not contact you because they're feeling overwhelmed basically. I would say every 6 months to a year, go through your website, use this PowerPoint as a checklist, make sure that all of your phone numbers work, all of your links to your social work. You're not content heavy, and I think that it'll be really beneficial for your SEO.
It's a great point, Sam, to bring up, is that websites are 24/7, 365. It doesn't matter if you're a super small company or if you're a huge company with a giant marketing department. Nothing is better than having a 24/7, 365 website. It is your all-time salesperson, your website. It doesn't matter where the person is or what time it is in their locale. They can go to your website and learn about your company, what you offer, and it's almost like having a sales team around the clock. So you want to make sure your website conveys what you do and also gives the user call to action. An informative website is great, but also you want to put it on the user as, we can help you, here's how to do it, even if it's simply a contact form. And you could have maybe a button on each page saying, contact us for an estimate, or contact us to learn more about how we can help you. So it's good to go through your website, as Sam said, every few months. I would even do it a little bit more than just 6 months. I would go through every couple of months and make sure everything is up to date, make sure everything is still looking good, everything is still working as it should, as Sam said, links and buttons and things like that.
And it's accessible.
And that it's accessible. You could check a lot of different things. And again, you can use this presentation as a guide. However, as far as deeper dives into accessibility, we do offer that. We can assist you with that. So are there any particular questions from our attendees?
There's one on any thoughts of Google's Blogger website format. Michelle uses that with their faith formation program, but it's very limited once you set it up.
I see. As far as blogging, blogs can be difficult because there's so much content being put up there. And with regards to accessibility itself, especially if there's a lot of different hands in the pot, a lot of different authors posting blogs, it's difficult to kind of maintain the level of accessibility where if it was just running through one person. As far as the actual layout and things like that itself, as it relates to Google, I'm not super familiar with it. But what I would say is that these principles that I've described in this presentation ring true for blogs as well. Certainly, sometimes you're doing a deeper dive in a blog and it becomes more content heavy, which is fine. But I would again suggest using language that is lower level, not overly complex unless you're defining complex terms within the content, and ensuring that all the functionality of the blog itself, such as page navigation, links, headings, using lists, if you're using lists, making sure they're semantically defined, and things like that will definitely improve not only the accessibility, but the user experience for all users when reading your blog.
I see. Michelle says she's the only one who runs it, and it's more developed as a website rather than a blog. So
that's even better. So if you're doing it as a website, you have a lot more control than you would otherwise if you were using some sort of plugin or something like that. So if you're building it as a website, the author should have 100% or near 100% control. So to implement these things, it's actually much easier when it's going through one person or one portion of a company that's responsible for posting these things.
I have a question.
Sure.
Do I ask it in the chat or can I just
Oh yeah, you could just
Ask
What-
it now.
Yeah.
Shout it out loud.
Okay, I have my website set up. Certain elements that when the users click on them will open up a new tab. And I've often asked myself, is that annoying to them? You know, sometimes it is to me, where I click on something in a website and it opens up a new tab. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't.
So-
Any suggestions with that? Do I, you know, should I design my website so that whatever they click on, they can always hit the back button? Or,
That's an awesome question. And I actually have never heard that one asked before. So this is very cool. So that's an awesome question. So in general, there's no rule or anything regarding that. What I usually say is a best practice is, for the most part, you can leave it so that when a user clicks a link, it stays within the same tab and that they
Okay.
can navigate back using the back button. However, for certain things, such as if you're linking to an external website,
yes,
um,
okay,
then that would be
Right.
preferable to open in a new window or a new tab. And that's strictly just a setting on the link itself in the
Right.
code, or if you're using some sort of content management system, perhaps it's just a little checkbox that you check when you're putting in the content. So what I like to say is, if you are linking to something on your website, you can keep it just in the same. And then if you're doing some sort of external, linking to some external website, you can open in a new tab. I would personally include in the link text, I would let the user know that it opens in a new window.
you are about to leave this website or this web page.
You don't even have to be as verbose as that. It could literally just be, maybe YouTube, and then
Right.
parentheses opens a new tab. And
Okay.
the user will understand what
A little
what
bit
that
of a
means.
warning in case they don't want to do that for some reason.
Precisely. And then
Um,
if need be, the user, I believe, has the ability to not do that as well. They could just load it in there, the same tab. But letting the user know what's going to happen when they initiate an action is always a good thing.
Right. Thank you.
Absolutely. I've never heard that one before. I'm very happy that somebody asked that.
You know, I mean, just for myself, it's like sometimes I go to hit the back button when I'm browsing and I go to hit the back button and it's not there. And it's like, oh, okay, it opened a new tab. It's just, it makes me feel like I've been sidetracked. So I would be more inclined to make it so that they can just hit the back button and get back where they were.
Perfect.
So,
And again,
thank
there
you.
is nothing set in stone regarding this. It's basically just each user has their own opinion on it. But the best thing to remember is that in any sort of initiating an action, it's always good to let the user know exactly what's going to happen, which is why I say to let the user know it's going to open in a new window.
Makes sense.
You have anything else? I know.
We don't currently offer website building or SEO services, but we do offer to make sure that your website's accessible and compliant. So we do accessibility testing.
Yeah, and we can assist you with all of that. And we also specialize, I myself love this part of my job, is training. I love to let people know what I know and teach them so that they can learn. I love knowledge transference and teaching everything I know so that you can go ahead and understand what is accessibility, why is it so important, and how does it help not only persons with disabilities, but all users in general. It's intended to benefit everybody. And although we specifically call out persons with disabilities because of various laws out there, such as the Americans with Disabilities Act, really accessibility is for everyone, and it will benefit every website and all users to every website. If these things are taken into consideration, it makes the websites very intuitive to use, very understandable, and very pleasurable and streamlined to use. So I also like to just point out that when building websites, in general, my recommendation is always to keep it simple. You don't want to overload any user with information. A lot of information is good, but I would try to pare it down and then give the user a call to action where if they want more information, if they want to engage with you, they can do so. But you can give them an email or contact form, phone number, whatever you prefer to get in contact with potential clients and members of the public. But I tend to like to keep it simple. That maintains a high level of accessibility, and it will assist SEO in just having a very clean design page.
Sometimes
know-
less is more.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And we
My,
didn't. Yes.
my web pages try to answer every possible question ahead of time. And then now I'm rethinking that, and I'm thinking like maybe, you know, because they're very texty and they're very wordy. It's a very information-based website. You know, I work for a church, for a religious education program. So it's like I wanted it to be the go-to for all of our parents, but sometimes like I look at my pages and I'm going, oh, there's like a lot of text on there. And I think that when people see a lot of text, they like get
They
turned off.
become less
sort of.
likely. Yeah, they're less likely
Yeah,
to
they
read it.
just skim through it. They don't really pay attention. So maybe that, you know, just put any more questions, call this number or email us. Whatever.
Exactly. Yep.
Do that. You could also utilize a different design, perhaps like a frequently asked questions page where you have all the different questions listed, but then only the answers are exposed when the user selects that question. There are a lot of different design techniques where you can still have quite a bit of information without it being an overload, so that the user can
Right.
perhaps find the question they're interested in and then say, hey, that's what I want to learn. Select it, and then there's your answer. That sort of design principle. But I hear you, just presenting all this content all at once on one page, it can be overwhelming for a user, and that's something we would try to avoid.
Okay.
And I know we didn't touch on it in this presentation, but it is worth mentioning because we've become so video, YouTube centric over the past few years, is that multimedia is a great thing, provided that accessibility considerations are taken into account, meaning that if you're utilizing video or synchronized audio video on your web page, you should ensure that that video has closed captioning, similar to how we've provided the automatic transcription through Zoom. And you'll notice that there are some errors in it. It is automatic. You know, the computer is interpreting our voice, so there's going to be some issues. So it should be gone through to make sure everything is correct. So captions should be provided for multimedia, as well as a text transcript. And I love talking about this one because not only will a text transcript be the most accessible thing possible, where a user will be able to read through exactly what is said and the sounds in a video, but also if something is spoken in a video, well, Google essentially can be thought of as blind and deaf. Google does not listen to videos. It can't do that. It's all text-based. So if you're providing a text transcript on the page for the user, who instead of perhaps they can't view or listen to the video, instead they want to read the text transcript, you're also providing that text exposed to Google. So if something is spoken in a video about a particular topic and there's no text transcript, well then if somebody searches for that topic, even though you spoke about it in your video, Google is not going to return your website because